he came up with a T-shirt, and he says, "My wife gave me this." She says, "Stop me before I volunteer again."
Yes.
There's some probably going to be some people that are watching the show that can relate
Definitely.
to that. So I hit the start stream button. So
Is that your phone, Matt?
yeah, so that's my phone telling me that I'm live on Facebook.
Got it.
So that's also a reminder that I
Excellent.
need to turn off my notifications on my phone. And
A good reminder. Yeah.
if you want to be uninterrupted, you might want to do that as well.
I've already turned
All
mine.
right. Great. Oop, and that's me.
We're live on Facebook at Matt Greenick, Locker Real Estate. We're also
Oh, look
live.
how pretty the yard looks with the flowers.
I tried to set up the flowers to like kind of block out the
Connie, you
stuff
knew
a
that
little
you
bit.
were like pink. Yes. Excellent. Oh, it looks very nice.
Let us know how the
Even though
sound
it's 1,000
is.
degrees out here.
It
Dr.
is a
Lou,
little
are
hot.
you dying in that jacket and sweater?
No, I feel fine.
Okay, great. Good answer. Let us know if you start feeling faint. All right.
Like I said, the chat box is open, man. Make those comments.
Hello, Judy Green. Don't trip over the Ethernet cord when you get home, okay?
Susie Marcucci Kennedy, our literary liaison, is on the
Yes.
show.
Yes, Susie's another
She'll be
neighbor of ours.
She'll be
So sounds great. Thanks, Susie.
reviewing our book, your book, letting us know what she thinks.
Oh boy.
It's hardcore.
I did start reading it. I didn't get very far, full disclosure, but there's a lot of good tidbits in there. So a lot of good little quotes and nuggets. And
There's-
no, I didn't get that far.
There's so much stuff in there that one of the things I will probably say somehow in our comments, it would save people lots of money because there's a lot of consulting in there.
Right.
I mean,
right.
they'd pay thousands of dollars to get what they're getting in that book for $19.95.
Right. And hourly rates for consultants are a little bit more than that.
Yes.
Just a little bit. So
Just a little bit.
let's say hello to our guests, Dr. Lou Beccaria and Constance Carter, CFRE. We'll get to that.
Chris Golden, our literary liaison.
No, our
Or
financial
financial
advisor.
advisor. See,
We like to make up titles here.
Dave Charles, Joe Rusevich.
Thanks for tuning in. Dave Charles, looks like you have read the book already. Lots of nuggets for sure, he says.
So we've
Excellent.
got people from the nonprofit world that are tuning in to see Lou Beccaria or Beccaria.
Beccaria.
Oh, Beccaria, I'm
Beccaria.
so sorry.
It's okay.
As
Lou
a
Beccaria.
Brancaccio, I'm very embarrassed that I mispronounced your name.
And the co-author of your book, ma'am,
Constance Carter.
Connie Carter.
Yes.
All right.
So this is the book with this lovely photo on the cover. Nonprofit Excellence, Strategies for a Challenging World, a handbook for grant making and nonprofit leadership skills.
Joe Rusevich. Listen up.
Joe is the executive director of the Foundation for Pottstown Education. Do you know Joe?
Education, yeah.
Right.
So Chris Golden set this show up. She's done some work in the nonprofit arena with Lou, and I guess helped Lou in some way, shape, or form, in some minor role with the book, maybe some input or review. I'm not exactly sure.
She actually reviewed, edited, and gave her imprimatur to the essay on the critical importance of operating reserves because of her financial background.
I understood like 10% of that.
Chris is an accountant.
Got it.
She knows some
Got it.
accountants
Got
type
it.
stuff.
Okay. The money stuff.
She is an
Money
accountant.
stuff.
Got it.
So Chris set this show up. Chris is a regular watcher of the show, of course. She knows one of the hosts fairly well, and was saying, I think Lou would be a good guest because he can speak to the people who watch the show from the nonprofit community and give them some advice, along with Connie, about ways that they can keep their membership involved, ways that they can be more efficient, ways that they can better connect with the community.
And practice best practices, which
Best
is a common
practice.
term used in the nonprofit world.
Right.
So we're all about best practices.
So if you're watching the show from the nonprofit world and you have a question or a comment that you would like to make, while Lou and Connie are talking, please do so, and we'll get that out on the air. Again, this is some valuable information, and if Lou and Connie didn't agree to come on the show today for free, you would be paying them for this hour.
Yes, thousands of dollars.
At least $50. I would say from the small bit of the book that I've been able to read so far, I think there is valuable information and thought-provoking concepts for just people in any business. Even if you're not involved in a nonprofit or you don't sit on your church board of elders or you know, whatever.
It applies to all of that.
Right. So there's even just the beginning section that talks about philanthropy and what counts as philanthropy. We think of philanthropy as people giving large amounts of money. This program is brought to you by the Helena Rubinstein Foundation. You know, that kind of level. That's what we think of as philanthropy, or Bill and Melinda Gates or whatever. But philanthropy doesn't just have to be giving large sums of money. It could be large sums of time.
That's right.
Or large sums of kindness.
Or compassion.
Or small.
Or
sums.
small,
sums.
right.
Which is, I think, one of the special qualities that Lou brings as a funder and a donor and a nonprofit professional is he has a much broader, more inclusive view
Yes.
of what that entails.
Right.
Which then encourages everybody to get involved.
Sure. Well, and the large donors are very important, of course, but also the people that volunteered and come in to run the vacuum in the facility over the weekends and volunteer their
Right.
time to do that and empty the trash and you know, clean the bathrooms.
One of the points I tried to make in that particular essay is even outside of volunteering, which is very important, obviously, but you know, the root of the word philanthropy is Greek, and it means the love of mankind.
Right.
So you can express love of mankind in a philanthropic way simply by certain comments that you would make, you know. And I use this example all the time even when I'm teaching college classes. You know, everybody's been to school. You see the custodians all the time doing their work, okay? Nobody ever thinks about saying, hey, nice job, or it really looks good.
Yeah.
Those people never get that kind of comments. They're low on the totem pole in terms of recognition, low on the totem pole in terms of economic well-being, in terms of the hierarchy of the economics of the organization. And a simple comment like that can really make their day.
Oh,
And that's an expression of love.
And their job is very important, of course, now, in COVID,
Yeah,
especially now.
especially important.
But I'll bet you all of those people that would never comment to say, hey, good job, or the floor looks great, would be very quick to say, can you get to the bathroom? It's really dirty.
Right,
So,
exactly.
you know, we
Yeah.
to be just as quick to praise and say thank you as we are to criticize or point out something that needs to be done.
Yeah. And that doesn't really cost anything. All it costs is, one, the awareness that it's important.
Right.
And number two, the interest in employing it, okay, and just saying it, okay. All of a sudden, you've improved somebody's day and you've done a philanthropic act.
Yes.
So there's no excuse for people not to do that.
Right. So it's really the same route as Philadelphia, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right?
City of brotherly love.
Yeah.
So here's a couple questions and a couple of comments coming through. Joe Rusevich already has a copy of the book. He's going to start reading it.
Bring the mic a little bit closer.
Chris Golden is saying to, what is your favorite part of the book? If you had to pick out a favorite part of the book, it's probably she's referring to the part that she helped write.
Chris is so humble, she wouldn't do that.
No.
Well, if you're directing it to me.
Yeah, I mean,
the
it's
question-
a general question to the authors.
I honestly can't say I have a favorite part of it. One of the things I do like about the book is that it's varied, in that we got poems in there, philanthropy poems. We have cartoons, we have quotes, and we have essays on both sides of the philanthropic process, the grant making and the grant seeking side. So, you know, I've been involved in all of that in my 50 years of experience. And so the way I can answer the question is I don't have a particular
The whole
favorite.
book. The whole book is his
The whole
favorite.
thing.
Right.
The whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I would say, too, that one of the, I think, special things about it is that Lou and I come to this from two different directions. I've been on the fundraising side, and the organizational management and coaching side, and he's been in his life more on the grant making side. So I understand those shoes of people like desperate to, how am I going to impress this grant maker, and oh
Yeah.
my goodness, what do I say? And he's coming from the standpoint of, these are the sort of things that sometimes people do that aren't particularly helpful. So we bring that together and mix it together, which is, I think that's a strength too.
Yeah, and I've been on both sides of it, and one of the things that I think have incorporated is that, philanthropy is not about a power game. Both sides need each other. Philanthropy, the foundations, wealthy people, even the people with small amounts of money, they have the money. The nonprofit organizations, they have the services, okay, but they don't have the money.
Right.
So it's a symbiotic relationship between the grant seekers and the grant makers, okay, or the donors, okay, in that we need each other. And there's that coming together that we wish we had so much more in other aspects, particularly our political life.
Right. Right. There was the bit that I was starting to get you. Oh, here's the operating reserves. That's the part. Sorry, talk amongst yourselves until I find it.
There was a couple of things that you kind of had on your list that you wanted to try to hit or highlight. Do you want to try to start at the top of that?
I know.
And then when Amy gets her way through, we'll get to that. And then there's some other questions developing in the comments.
I did find it. It was the changing the nonprofit vow of poverty mentality, and I didn't quite get through all. I was like, that is, I think, really important. And just because you're nonprofit doesn't mean that you have to be poor, right? With or operating with leftovers and hand-me-downs and
That's true.
things like that. Yeah.
And that's important. And I'm going to turn it over to Connie because that's her particular specialty of talking about
okay,
that
yeah,
topic.
Just come a little closer with the mic because we do have a couple of comments that they're having.
Yeah, and I'm having some problems with mic 4, which is the one that she's on.
Oh,
So
okay, got it. So
just
it might
talk
be
as
an operator error.
It could be.
Talk
So,
loudly.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that was an article which I wrote because it's a subject near and dear to my heart, and that is this nonprofit vow of poverty that it seems like so many nonprofits embrace. And many of the examples, or all of the examples in that article, are actually true things that I have experienced. I have had, as a development director, my office was an elevator shaft. Literally, it was. And I have met nonprofit people who are like, oh, no, our computer's 10 years old. We don't need a new computer.
It's fine.
We're serving poor people. They need the money. And it's like there needs to be a balance.
Right, but wouldn't you be able to serve them better if you had
Yes.
proper equipment that didn't take
Yes.
Yeah.
10 minutes to save a spreadsheet?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And what was fascinating in the work that both Lou and I did around the article that's about for-profits and nonprofits, we have an article that sort of talks about some of the differences between the two mentalities because they're two very different mentalities. We are blessed in this area to have some retired for-profit executives who are now running nonprofit organizations, obviously taking huge pay cuts and just doing it out of the kindness and love in their heart.
Right.
They get that computers that you have to boot up and wait 20 minutes before they come on are not serving you well. They
Right.
get that. They understand that, and they understand the value of investing in the infrastructure.
Right.
Whether that's the equipment or whether it's investing in the personnel to keep staff educated and happy and trained and motivated. They
Well,
get
and
that.
to attract good
Yeah,
personnel.
that's right.
You want
That's
to
right.
tempt them, make it tempting enough
Yeah.
to keep them out of the
Yeah.
for-profit world
Yeah.
and to give their time and talents or employ their time and talents.
Exactly.
In the
Yeah.
nonprofit world.
And I think we lose sight occasionally of what vitally important work nonprofits do.
Sure.
That they, their health care, their education, all the major areas of our life that they contribute to. Therefore, it's important work. They deserve
Right.
good tools.
Right,
Yeah.
but to balance that with how when you're giving to a nonprofit and you don't want to see the big salaries, the
Right.
American Red Cross, or I'm just making this up, just for an example, 85% of their donations go to paying salaries. So how do you balance that out? Like,
Yeah.
so that the optics are not off-putting to donors.
That point is a point why it's important to have good, strong, kind of well-educated in the nonprofit world of boards of directors to keep an eye on that kind of a thing.
Right.
Okay. There's a rule of thumb, for example, we always use at the foundation, that for every philanthropic dollar that's given, at least 75 cents out of that dollar ought to be going to direct services.
Right.
And the other 25 cents to fundraising / administration.
Right.
Okay. When you get below that, you start raising questions about how efficient the operation is and who's getting paid what.
Right. So is that kind of an industry standard, that percentage split?
Yeah, and strangely enough, there's no law about it. The IRS has no law about it. The Better Business Bureau has no. Matter of fact, the Better Business Bureau has a lower standard than what I was just mentioning.
Right.
But it seems to me that 75 cents out of every dollar. And you'd be surprised at how many organizations actually are even more efficient than that. In the 30 years I spent at 3 different foundations, I found a good number of them that were up in the 80s, 81, 82% of efficiency.
Right.
So
Is that because they had their people working in elevator shafts?
no.
It could be, or it could be that they are just very efficient in what they do.
Sure. Yeah, everything's
And
streamlined.
they allocate, a lot of it has to do about how they allocate expenses, and we don't need to get into all
Sure.
that financial stuff. But I think it's also important to realize that, really high quality management, people should be able to enter the nonprofit arena, I think, and be educated and trained and be able to say, yeah, I can raise a family. I can have a decent standard of living.
Right.
And many times you can't.
Right.
We have difficulty attracting really good talent
Yeah.
because people are like, well, there's going to be no benefits, or I'm going to get a measly little pension, or not a good health insurance plan, or whatever. And so we need to be able to encourage people that, yeah, you could make a really good life
Right.
here. Not excessive, but
Right.
okay.
The last thing you want is your staff being able to qualify for the benefits that you're supplying
Right.
as a nonprofit organization.
Right. Exactly.
That's exactly
There's-
right.
Yeah.
There's that.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it, I think, too, when it comes down to that, is we have a situation where, for instance, I'm a member of, and I'm just using this as an example. It's just illustrative purposes only. I'm a member of the board at the Pottstown Cluster of Religious Communities. We have social workers, and we have accountants, bookkeepers, executive directors. All of these positions require college degrees. And we all know what the cost of college
Right.
is.
Yep.
That's a
So
good
we're
point.
putting social workers out there,
Yep.
putting them to work for nonprofits on measly salaries
Yep.
when they have hundreds of thousands of dollars of college debt
Yep.
and student loan debt.
Yep.
I think that has to be kind of taken into
Yep.
consideration when planning how you're going to
Yep.
pay and compensate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Matt, that's one of the reasons why we're of the school of thinking that people need to think of nonprofits as a business.
Right.
Okay, and have a
Right.
business mentality rather than a charity mentality toward it. Yes, technically they're public charities according to the IRS, but they have to be run like businesses. The bottom line is different in that they're mission driven rather than profit driven.
Right.
But the way that they conduct their activities need to be very businesslike, and that's where the best practices come
Yeah.
in. That we have the chuck full of them in the book there.
Yeah.
What we
Right.
suggest.
We
So
do have a
befo-
question. There
We
you go,
do,
Joe's
and
question.
it's a really good one too. Joe Rusevich from the Foundation for Pottstown Education is asking, how do you explain the need for operational funding to donors who say that they want to give to a program?
Well, I think
Right.
I personally I think the answer there is you can't deliver the program without the infrastructure behind it.
Right.
It's not maybe you might call glitzy and attractive to fund that.
Right.
But how do you put the daycare worker with the 3-year-old children who need that daycare worker without a boss, without a building, without somebody to make lunch and snacks? All of that is without electricity, without heat in the building, without the bus that goes around and picks up the kids, without the consulting dietitian, not a sexy thing, but the consulting dietitian who comes in and looks at the menus and watches the people make the food, without the health department surveys, all of those things, we don't often think about everything else that it takes.
That's part of the program. Because
That's right.
Without those
That
things,
it
you don't have the
takes-
program.
And what
to
Connie has
deliver
just
that
described
service,
is
yeah.
all things that every business, for-profit business, would need.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the nonprofits are no different. They're no different.
Right.
Would
Yeah.
would something like I'm imagining something to take to those type of donors, like some kind of flow chart or some type of illustrative chart that they could see all the related costs or operations or the pieces that go to make that program
Yep.
work. If you had something that illustrated that to people, it might be easier for them to
Yep.
wrap their head around.
Well, the budget would work.
Right.
They show them the budget.
But there's a
or
lot
if
of
you've got
people-
that number that
That's
75% is going to the mission and 25% is going to the
Indirect costs,
infrastructure,
yeah.
right? So, all right, donor person, if you would like to give us $1,000, yes, 750 of it is going to go
Yeah.
directly to the beneficiaries of the program. We need $250 of it in order to make that program happen. That's pretty easy for me to
And he-
understand as a
If I could suggest, there's another way. If it's a new donor we're talking about, and they are only interested at that point of making a donation to a specific program, that would be fine. Okay, but if you treat that donor
Yeah.
correctly, over a period of time, they are going to understand and appreciate what Connie was just talking about all the infrastructure kinds of things, and they will feel more safe in giving the money. At the foundation that I retired from, that's the criteria we used. You know, if we would fund a program first, it was a brand new organization, and we didn't know much about them, and if they proved themselves to use their money efficiently, to be good reporters of accountability, that boosted our confidence, and then we would open up to general operating support.
right.
Keep talking amongst yourself. I
Right.
forgot to
So
plug
if
in
you're- Oh boy. Stick with us, folks. There's always a challenge. So you're talking about the foundation. What was the foundation that you retired from?
The Phoenixville Community Health Foundation.
Okay, so is that like our health and wellness foundation here? Ish.
Yep, it's exactly like
Okay, mission is-
health.
is
they're,
the same.
they're commonly called in the field the health conversion foundations.
Okay, so a nonprofit would come to you looking for support for their programming, and as kind of a trial run, you'd say, yes, we'll give you X amount of money for your program, and if they do all of the right things, they spend the money correctly, they report back to you how they spend the money, and then you'd be more likely to give them operating funds as opposed to programming funds.
And it seems like
Yeah?
that's a reasonable, at least in my way of thinking, it's a reasonable way to operate.
Sure.
You know, you're if you believe in the particular cause that they're involved in, then investing in their program, and that's what it is. Grants are investments, okay, which is another business-related term, but they are investments. And if they do well with a quote small investment, then you're willing to make a larger investment.
Here's another question, too. This is from Dave Charles. Dave Charles is the executive director of Strive, which is a youth mentoring nonprofit here in Pottstown.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Dave specifically works in the middle school in order to give support to middle school students in
Yeah, mentoring
Pottstown.
program.
Mentoring program, basically. Dave Charles is asking, what is the main role of a board chair of a nonprofit organization?
I would say basically the board chair, there's several functions. One is certainly to sort of run the board, meaning that person generally runs board meetings and is responsible for keeping the board members engaged, keeping them on topic, covering, you might go into a board meeting, say that's an hour and a half, and you might have 10 agenda items, and how do we fit it all in? So that person typically is in charge of making sure that they monitor the discussions, cut it off when it needs to be, so that you can cover all of the items. So there's all of that element in terms of managing the board, which is a volunteer group. But there's also the role, which is incredibly important, of the liaison between the board. That person is the link between the board and the executive director. There is actually an article in the book about the difference between chief executive officer or executive director roles and the board of directors. And so the board chair is really responsible for being that primary link to the executive director and making sure that there's really good communication, because the executive director is the one who really knows what's going on. If you think about a board of directors, many times because of the nature of the organization, they may not even meet at the organization site because it's not appropriate. They may meet at someone's law office, or, I served on a board for many years. It was an urban greening organization in Philly, and we met in the 18th floor poshy law offices of one of the board members. We never saw the work that was actually being done on the ground. And so the executive director is the one who has that intel, and that needs to come through that person, through the board chair, to the board itself.
Don't you think it's important for the board members to be on the ground?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. That's a great
maybe
comment.
Not for every meeting, but they should at least get in,
Right.
in the example you just gave, like get their hands dirty.
And we did. We did
right?
that. And there's many ways to do that. Some of it is to come in and watch the work being done if that's appropriate.
Sure.
But you can also bring program people to board meetings to say, talk for 10 minutes. I'm going to tell you a story about something that happened last month.
Right.
Or, provide that kind of intel to the board so that they have a better hands-on knowledge.
Right.
Because it's so easy to sit back and be very disconnected to the reality of the day-to-day challenges and the amazing things that are being accomplished by this nonprofit.
And the efforts given by the volunteers and the employees.
That's right. And that's the information that really does keep board members inspired and feeling like, oh, this donation of my time is worthwhile.
Right.
One of the things that I struggle with as a board member sometimes is when we've spent what I believe is a significant amount of time working or talking about something, and the same topic keeps coming up over and over and over again in each board meeting.
Yeah.
And that's a frustration because then you start to question, is my time, am I doing the right thing? Am I being effective? Am I really needed on this board if we can't solve X, Y, or Z problem in an efficient or time-sensitive manner?
Yeah, I think to take off on what Connie was saying, I think a couple of the jobs of a chairman of a nonprofit, chairperson of a nonprofit organization, would be one, to be the facilitator and make sure that things are kept on track. Okay. There can be a tendency on a board for somebody to use the board meetings as a grandstand and overtake the meetings and
You've never
and
seen
just
that at all.
spend much
No.
more time. I look at the chairperson's role as I sometimes refer to them as a culture captain. It's establishing a culture in the organization, okay, that's accepting, that's inquisitive, that's learning. And those kinds of characteristics, I think, are very important of a board chairperson. Okay, the other would be that I think the board chairperson has to have a sense of vision for the organization. Okay, and then let the other board members kind of do their thing on their particular committees and so forth. So it's a combination of being a vision person, setting the culture, and also making sure that the time is used efficiently, or else you're going to lose board members.
Yeah.
So it's a big frustration. Is there are a lot of things that happen at the board level that don't need to be discussed at the board level.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's
why they have committees.
Subcommittees. There's
Yeah.
ad hoc committees. There's committee. So committee, here's your charge. Here's what you go do it, and then come back and report. We don't need to try to solve how you're going to do your job.
Right.
That's the committee.
Right.
And
job.
that's often a role of the board chair to redirect that conversation and say, we've talked about this. This is the second or third time we're chewing on it.
Yes.
We need to do something else. We need to figure out a different way to approach it. So we're going to do this. And that board chair is responsible for monitoring that conversation so
Yes.
that people can feel it's so
Yeah.
important for volunteers to feel their time is well spent.
Yes.
It's such a huge
I don't
gift. And
think
to
that
come
any
away
board
from a
meeting
board
should be
meeting.
more than an hour.
Yeah, to come away from a
No.
board meeting going, well, that was a waste of time.
Right.
I mean, it's not what it should be.
And going back to our previous conversation about the business model for nonprofits, I think people who serve on boards have to realize when you get on a board, it's not a coffee klatch. Okay, you're there to do business.
Yes.
And
Yeah, you
it's
want to go out
important
for
business.
a drink after the board
Right.
meeting? Go ahead.
Right.
But we don't
Yeah.
need to
Right.
catch up
Yeah.
here.
Here's a question too. I guess this is my question, and then actually before that, Joe Rusevich is saying that what he calls the storytelling that Connie was just explaining as mission moments.
Some people call them that. Exactly.
One of the questions that I have is what I have noticed over the course of serving on several different boards or working with several different nonprofits is that there's a tendency to be overly polite about things sometimes. And maybe too congratulatory. Isn't this all great? It's all a bed of roses. Everything we do is awesome and spectacular, and everybody's doing just a great and wonderful job. How do you kind of get past that and take real hard issues to the board or to the executive director? What's the approach?
I think Lou touched on it a tiny bit earlier. It's about creating a board culture. And that is a tone that the board chair has a significant role in setting. And creating a board culture where it is okay to disagree, where certainly the communication is respectful and mindful of other people, but where it's okay to say, no, I don't agree with you and this is why, or I think that's a really bad idea, and that's an acceptable thing to do. Too many times what I find, and there's a couple articles in the book about how to recognize a dysfunctional board, how to realize when a board is in real trouble. And too many times, one of the root causes of that is people want to be nice. And they're afraid.
Clearly, you've never been to a synagogue board meeting.
And they're afraid to call out. They're afraid to call out something that isn't working. And they just want to be nice and we're great and everything else. And meanwhile, the whole organization's like slowly going down a slippery slope.
Right.
Right.
And then by the time they wake up and realize it, it's too late.
It could be too late,
Yeah.
or the damage is too far gone.
Yeah.
Right. It would
Yeah.
take a real.
That's why the
serious-
chairmanship of any
It's
organization is so critical.
Yeah.
Because you have to have the right person, the right personality in that person as the leader of the board in order to make it function.
We do have a question here.
Yeah, there's another one. Are you talking about the common pitfalls?
From Anna Louise Fisher. Question for the group: any common pitfalls for nonprofit boards and recommended resolutions? Nonprofit boards and recommended
Yep.
resolutions.
There is an
saying-
article in
Hold
the
on
book
one
about that.
second. I want to give her credit.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
She's currently a member of Strive and also a member of the Genesis Housing Board.
Yeah. There is actually an article in the book that I think directly addresses that. I call it, I think it's one that I wrote. It's called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, boards that I've known. And I talk about literally symptoms of what does a high-functioning board look like and what are the challenges with keeping a high-functioning board high-functioning to keep you from getting, complacent. Well, everything we do is great and it's wonderful. And then so that's the good. Then there's the bad, which is a board that's not quite functional, not terrible, but it could be doing a whole lot more. And I talk about the symptoms and how to fix it. And then there's the ugly, which is, you can imagine,
You need to
is
wipe the slate and start
this
over.
is just really bad. And you and I have both seen organizations that have basically been taken down because of dysfunctional boards that either would not do what they needed to do in making leadership changes, or that just were asleep at the switch.
I want to put a word in too, in addition to all that, for the value of humor in a board meeting. Okay, not to overdo it, but humor can actually be very productive in helping to break a little tension. Okay, and helping to set the atmosphere, again, the culture that we were talking about, that people would feel free and that they could joke a little bit. Okay, it really, in my experience, it really lends an awful lot to the interaction that takes place in a group setting.
So we keep referencing the chapters of the book. The name of the book is Nonprofit Excellence. Hold on, I got to read the rest of it. The name of the book is Nonprofit Excellence, Strategies for a Challenging World, a handbook for grant making and nonprofit leadership skills. Louis Beccaria and Constance Carter. How does somebody get a hold of this book, Lou?
Very simply, if I can give out my email address.
Give it out.
I'll give that and my phone number. My
I'm
email.
going to put it, go slow because I'm going to put it right in the comments.
My email address is bbguy, Guy, 1945 at outlook.com. BB stands for baseball guy.
Baseball guy 1945 at Outlook.
.com. And the phone number
Oop, hold on.
is 610-283-8278.
610-283
8278.
8278. So I just threw that there in the comments. If you are interested in purchasing the book, please contact Lou, baseball guy.
And
Who's your team?
well, I'm a Phillies fan,
Okay. Just checking. Just checking.
but I played a lot of baseball in my time too.
Okay.
So.
We don't want any Yankees fans around
Oh
here.
no,
All
no
right.
way.
Out. You would be off the show immediately.
Now look, we also have a little bit of breaking news.
Oh,
Breaking news on Porchcast.
What's the breaking news? I
The
don't
breaking
even know.
news is that Lou is offering a discount to nonprofit organizations
Great.
who would like to buy the book for their staff and board members.
Very nice.
So why don't we just shift into a little bit of a advertisement here
That sounds good.
and break them off how they can get their book discount for nonprofits.
Okay. The retail price for one book is $19.95, but if an organization is interested in buying between 2 and 5 books, it drops it down to $17.95. If they're interested in buying between 6 and 11 books, it drops it down even more to $15.95. And 12 and above is $12.95 per book.
Okay.
And so this would be one of those expenditures that would be further in the education
Yes.
of your board members or your volunteers
Yes.
or your staff, and
Right.
where it would be a
Yes.
worthy investment and you would reap the benefits.
And as you
10.
said earlier, it potentially could save you thousands of dollars
Sure.
in consulting fees.
Right.
And we're big advocates too of having board meetings be learning experiences. So at the first when at the foundation, for example, that I retired from, we would have either organizations come in that we funded so we could learn more about them, or we would have a discussion about a particular issue or something, or a reading. Okay, so it could be that they could use a one of the essays from this book,
Sure.
and talk about that and discuss it for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then
Right.
go on for the rest of the business
Right.
of the board meeting. So board meetings can be a learning environment as well as a business environment.
Which also makes it more interesting for board members
Sure.
and gives them a broader view and a bigger picture. Right. It's very easy to get very one-pointed on whatever it is that you're dealing with, but it's important to remember you're part of this overall community.
Right, and to remember that while you're trying to solve this one issue or problem, chewing on that, there's still a lot of good work that's
Yes,
happening,
yes.
and let's remember what
Yeah.
is happening to support the mission.
I can see by the numbers that we've had some new watchers come onto the show, and it's about that time when we usually pick up a couple new watchers. Today we're talking to Lou Beccaria and Constance Carter about their book on nonprofit excellence. I know that there's a lot of people that are involved in the nonprofit world that are also Porchtonians. If you have a question for Lou or for Connie, put it in the comments and we will get to that as best we can during the remainder of the show. In order to help you facilitate, that's a board kind of term.
Yes.
In order to help facilitate the purchase of the book, I'm going to create a post on Matt Green at Glocker Real Estate after the show.
With all the contact information.
I will pin that to the top of the page.
Looks like Dave Charles is ordering 12, so do we get some sort of a cut?
Yes,
And, can we
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Finder's fee?
Pizza and beer, right?
So after
Drinks
the
on the
show,
house.
yeah. After the show, stay on the Matt Greenick Locker Real Estate page, go to the top, and I will have a pinned post with all the contact information so that you can place your book orders.
Yes. You'll get a lot out of it. Like I said, I just read the first couple of chapters or essays, and really was, it's going on the stack next to my bed with all the other books. But sometimes I just want to read like a little bit, they're like one chapter at a time or one essay at a time is about what I can.
Don't forget the cartoons.
Get through before
That's
I
right.
fall
There's
asleep.
cartoons too. Yeah.
Excellent cartoons. I'm in. Wonderful.
I think something else quick.
Yeah,
If I could just
you have,
drop
you have-
something
you have
else.
plenty time.
There's about 60 pages in the back of the book of sample policies, concepts, tables of contents of like a board manual, policies required by the IRS, tools for evaluating the composition of a board, for evaluating board meetings, all kinds of grant-making related documents. So we have all how to make a disaster plan.
Yeah, folks,
Right.
you'd pay like big, huge money for this kind of stuff if you had a consultant
And
do it.
How to
even
set
though
up a
it's
charter for a committee.
Yeah, charters for committees, and even though it's printed in the book, we also are happy to email any of those items to someone. We put our email address, same email addresses. If somebody wants something they could actually use and tweak and make their own. We have sample bylaws. We even, for those of you with pesky board members, we have a board member removal policy. Now, how cool is that? And we tell you how to do it and how to put the requisite item in your bylaws so that you're covered.
So that you can.
And then there's
you
a
can-
step-by-step
right.
policy about how to handle this.
It also might be a guideline if you're an over volunteer and you're on a board. You could also use that as a roadmap for how to get yourself.
kicked off.
That's right. How to get kicked off. You got it. Yep.
I've been waiting to get kicked off of stuff for years. You can't fire a volunteer, right?
Get the
Go-
book.
Well,
There's
you
a-
can.
There's a
That's
you
what
can
roadmap.
fire a volunteer.
That's what this policy
I was
allows you to
involved in
do.
that.
Yeah, that's
For-
what it
that
enables you to
Not
do.
a board member, but a volunteer, like at the.
No,
at
no,
the
it was a volunteer board member.
This was
who
about
was a
board
long-term
members, but-
volunteer, and
Yeah.
I won't go into the details of it, but after 2 years of trying to work with this person who was completely disruptive, had to develop a policy and a procedure to get him off the board.
That's really.
And there is
It's really like it just such a horrible position to be in because
Yeah.
you think nobody really tries to be difficult. Like I think everybody's intentions are good from their own viewpoint.
Sure.
Right. So how do you tell somebody that's willing to volunteer their time and their efforts that they're really more of a hindrance than a help?
Yeah.
There is an article in the book called "When It's Time to Go."
Right.
That does give, again, it gives you like symptoms of this is a moderately disruptive board member and how to maybe fix it. This is a very disruptive board member, how to try to fix it, and this person needs
It's just
to go.
no help.
And that is another one of those jobs of the board chair.
Gotcha. To kind of lay down the law.
Yes,
if need
it's
be.
not the executive director's job. It's the
No.
board chair's
You
job.
might need a sergeant at arms.
Right. I thought that person just made sure that everyone was adhering to Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah,
Isn't
it's
that what
not
the
that
sergeant
simple.
terms does?
They-
Like the parliamentarian.
They
Yeah,
can kick
right.
you out too.
Oh,
Yeah.
the parliamentarian.
That's why the chairman
Is that
gets all
even
those
used
big bucks.
anymore?
In the Senate, it is.
Yeah.
Or the House of Representatives.
But in
or
the world of
nonprofits, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I want to ask one question real quick too while we're coming down towards the end of the show, and then we're going to get into news and events. Stick with us through the news and events. There's probably something going on that you know about or want to participate in. Is there any kind of equation for right sizing a board? I think all of us have experienced being on a board that's just way too big. Just too many people. Is there, in your study or in your knowledge, is there a simple equation or an elementary process for trying to right size a board?
Well, you want to answer it first,
Well,
and
that's a
I'll
good question.
jump in.
I've usually found, say, 11 or so is like you probably want an odd number ideally because then you don't have tie votes and things as much if everyone's there. I would say like a minimum 11, maybe a maximum 15, something like that.
Yeah,
Much
definitely not
over
bigger than that.
15 becomes really difficult. I'm involved with one organization. They've got 25 members on their board.
Wow.
It's tough.
Yeah.
So that would be my sense. How
yeah.
about you, Lou?
No, I was going to say something very similar. So, yeah.
Yeah.
You want a board big enough that you don't have to worry about getting a quorum, but not so big that it's very difficult to get
Yeah.
consensus on things.
Right. Or get, if you've got 25 people, there's going to be a certain amount that are just not going to be able to show up.
Right.
Or it's tough to have discussion.
Yeah.
So that everyone gets engaged.
Sure.
It's tough
Yeah,
to
that's a good
feel
point.
because you've got 25 people and a limited amount of time.
Right.
I think 11 being a minimum, though. We see an awful lot of nonprofits that have like 3 or 4 or 5 board members, and that's cause for concern because you wonder, well, if 2 or 3 people can't make a board meeting, you have a board meeting of 3, or makes you also worry like how much real oversight, how many skills are on the board,
Yeah.
things like that.
And when it's that small, too, the organization runs the risk of having the executive director kind of run things instead of the board running things.
Yeah.
That's really a no-no.
Yeah.
Okay, the executive director works for the board.
Right.
Okay.
You have a visitor on your lapel. You probably want to brush him off.
A bee?
No,
Oh,
it's
it's
a
a
spider.
spider, I think.
He's
Yeah.
gone now.
Yeah.
You got him. Those are the joys of having an outdoor
Yes,
live
absolutely.
stream.
This
yes.
is great.
Yes. Thankfully, the weather is nice.
I just want to let everybody know, in case we have some new watchers, you are watching Porchcast Pottstown, news, updates, and conversation for Pottstown and the surrounding communities. Today we had Lou and Connie on the show so that they could talk to some of the people that we know are involved in nonprofit boards that watch the show. You can find the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 5-ish. On Matt Green at Glocker Real Estate and Porchcast Pottstown on YouTube. We're still looking for people to subscribe to YouTube, so hit that subscribe button. It does not cost you anything, and it helps us out tremendously. Speaking along
Got a
those
couple more
lines.
comments.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me finish this little
Sure.
pitch for ourselves.
Okay.
If you heard things today that you like and want to share with other nonprofit board members or other executive directors, remember to hit the share
Yeah,
button
share the stream.
on the show. You can share it to your news feed.
Yeah, and say, hey, there's
You
some
can
good
share
stuff
it-
here.
You can share it to your group. You can cut and copy a link to the show and share that with your other nonprofit board members as well.
All of these things are very easy to do.
And they help us out
Yes.
a lot.
And you could help other people as well.
All right, Amy.
All right, so Dave Charles is saying thank you, and to tell Lou that Ken Winston is new to the Strive board, and Ken says that you are his mentor.
Well, he's very kind to say that, but yeah, Ken and I go back a long, long way.
All right, well,
He's a very good executive director at the Charles Melton Center in Westchester.
great. Well, I'm sure that he will be a valuable asset to the Strive board. Joe Rusevich is asking, what about having community members, non-board members, as committee members?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Absolutely. It is one of the best things an organization can do for themselves.
Well, first of all, then you're not just burning out your board by only having board members
exactly.
on committees, right?
Plus, you vastly broaden your network because every new person you bring onto a committee has their own set of networks, their own connections, their own skills. Plus, serving on a committee makes a great pipeline for new board members.
Sure.
Because you've dealt with this person for a couple years, and you don't have to wonder, would we like them on the board? I mean, if they're
Are they going to be one of these problem pieces?
That's right.
people that
You
we're
don't
gonna
have to
fire?
worry.
Yeah.
That's right, because you know, oh, that person's great. We love them on the board. They already know about the organization. They don't need as much training and orientation as a new board member because they were already jazzed about your organization.
Right.
Absolutely.
I was on a board one time where that was my suggestion for how we right-sized the board. In my opinion, it was one of these boards that was way too large. And some of the people were coming to the board meetings, participating in the board meetings with no idea what the overall mission of the board was. But they were very effective at carrying out certain tasks or certain function that the organization needed to run. That person would have been the perfect committee member.
A dynamic, a dynamo committee member.
Right.
They will absolutely. That's where their strength was.
Right.
But as a board
great
member,
doer, you need
Absolutely.
great thinkers and you need great doers.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, Lou. You're the expert.
No, I'm not expert. One of the points I wanted to make is what we've been talking about actually touches on the topic of recruitment as well. And I think there is a tendency among all of us, if we're recruiting somebody, well, first of all, when you're recruiting a board member, they ought to be recruited for a specific purpose, okay? So in terms of their background, the expertise that they can bring, but it's also very important, I believe, that they also be recruited in terms of their personality, meaning are they going to fit in with the culture that we were talking about before, okay, and not be somebody who is going to overtake or dominate or somebody who only will listen to their own ideas. And in that sense, when you're recruiting a board member, it's like a job interview, okay? And those who are recruiting somebody should actually look at it that way. That, they're applying for a job, they're not getting paid for the job, but they do have something to offer, and it's a give and take kind of a thing. The person who's being recruited to be on the board, they have certain needs, or else they wouldn't be interested, okay? Those recruiting that person need to understand what those needs are, because it's a symbiotic relationship. It's a give and take on both parts.
Right. Yeah, so you want to make sure that you don't have somebody that is just, has their own agenda and
That's
is
right.
not going to be able to put that agenda aside for the mission of the
Right.
of the board and
Right.
the organization.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're at
Yeah.
55.
Oh, 55.
And we have a
Right.
whole list of events and everything else going on.
Matt,
So-
is there anything happening this weekend?
I don't know. I'm feeling kind of bored.
I'm so bored. What can I do this weekend? All right, folks, get your
Here-
pad of paper out.
Here's the stack.
Here's the stack. All right, the powwow is this weekend. I hope they have great weather. That is on May 1st and 2nd at Riverfront Park this year, folks. So go see our friend Ron Williams and check out the powwow, which is from 10-ish to 5-ish. I think he said the grand opening ceremony is around noon on Saturday, if I remember that correctly. Also on Saturday is the annual Colonial Mayfair. I'm embarrassed to say that I've never been to the Mayfair at Pottsgrove Manor in the 20 whatever years I've lived here.
I went one time because a friend of mine was doing a colonial brewing exhibit.
You were like,
So-
beer? I'm there.
I did. So I went. I did. I went and watched them brew using 18th century methods, and then we sampled a little bit of 18th century
Nice.
beer. Was fun.
Yeah. It's really, Pottsgrove Manor is really great. They have a lot of great programs, and it's a really cool place to visit. So that is on Saturday, May 1st, from 11 to 1:30 and then 2:30 to 5. I do not know if you need to have tickets or if they're limiting the attendees, so go to the Pottsgrove Manor website or Facebook page and just check out. I'm not sure why they have the time split like that.
I don't either. A lot of times it's because they do have certain events that are going on. Like, for instance, my buddy did the brewing
Yeah.
demonstration. They wrap. That's a drive-by. That's somebody beeping out
That
front.
might have been Joe. Yeah.
So they do the Mayfair poll.
Yeah, that's what's in the picture right there.
The one time they had a militia demonstration,
Cool.
so the guys were showing their soldier stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be why they have it broken
Right.
up, because there's usually different events that go
program.
on throughout
Yeah.
the country.
So check that out.
Plus, in the past, the house was open for tours.
Yeah.
Because I volunteered there one time as a tour guide.
Hmm.
So while the Mayfair was going on, I was giving tours on the inside. But your suggestion to go and find out exactly
Yeah, just
what's going
find
on
out
is
exactly.
good.
Sorry that we don't have that exact information. Trinita says she has been there twice. I'm sure that you enjoyed it. I went to a, speaking of fashion, as we were before we got on the air, I went to a fashion exhibit there for fashion.
18th
of the
century
times. It was
fashion.
really interesting. Yeah. free virtual birth certificate and ID clinic. That is Friday, this coming Friday from 12 to 2. You must pre-register. Go to montgopa.org. If you know somebody that needs a valid ID and they're struggling to get it because they don't have their birth certificate or social security card, or there's something that is keeping them from getting a valid ID, this is for them. So montgopa.org/community connections. Should have no problem navigating the site, as we have said a million times before on the show, because it's really easy to find your way around the site. Monday, this coming Monday, May 3rd at 6 p.m., our friend Tamara Charles and Pottstown Community Action is having an open house at the Barth Elementary School garden. This is an event hosted by Mosaic Community Land Trust. And it is Monday, May 3rd at 6 p.m. at the Barth Garden, 467 Walnut Street. Looks really pretty in the picture. Strive Initiative is going to be, Dave Charles and the Strive Initiative are going to be the special guest at the Rotary Club meeting next Wednesday, May 5th. Matt, if I wanted to go to the Rotary Club meeting, how would I do that?
You would Google or go to Facebook and search Rotary Club Pottstown. And you would want to get in contact with either Nicole Vickers Matz, that's M-A-T-Z, or you could get in touch with William Paul Barogli, Esquire,
Yes.
or you could get in touch with Laura LeCount McCloskey. Lauren.
Yes.
Or you could also get in touch with Brooke Martin.
Any one of our friends.
They will
If you don't know how to get in touch with them, just get in touch with Matt or I, and we'll hook you up.
They
That's what we
will
do.
give you the invitation that you need to go and meet Dave Charles at Pottstown Rotary at the Brookside Country Club. You will
Wednesday, May
get
5th.
free dinner. Free.
Is there somebody tell me if there's going to be meatloaf, please?
If there's meatloaf, I might go.
We might both go if there's meatloaf. Oh wait, no, I got book club next week. Forget it. All right, Art Fusion, one of my favorite nonprofits in town. I have many. Most of the people watching and contacting or commenting, all wonderful nonprofits. But I do love me some Art Fusion. Art Fusion is having a Mother's Day together, Art Together for Mother's Day. Tickets are $10 to $20. Or if you're a member of Art Fusion, like I am, you get discounted prices on things. And this is a virtual event on Sunday, May 2nd from 1 to 3. No experience required. You have to go and pick up your kit, and then you can put the art items together with your child or children.
How much is that again?
Tickets are $20.
Okay.
Supply kits can be picked up from Beach Street or mailed for an additional $10, but now you're bumping up against like a time frame thing because, you know, the Postal Service.
It's a little slow.
Yeah. So go on their website, go on their Facebook page, reach out to them if you want to do a little art project with your child or children for Mother's Day. May 2nd, that is. Charity auction for the Pottstown Regional Public Library. You can view the chairs for the charity auction. You can view the chairs every Tuesday between 10 and 1 from now through May 19th. And then the event is on Saturday, May 22nd at the Carousel from 12 to 3 with food, drink, basket raffles, and free rides on the Carousel. The auction starts at 1 with celebrity auctioneer George Wasnock. And the chairs, if you go to the library website or Facebook page, the chairs are just exceptional. So that is a lovely fundraising event for them.
I sponsored a chair one year.
I
It was
sponsored
good
a chair
time.
this year.
Did you?
Yeah, did. Don't forget that Pottstown, or the county, Montgomery County, is still has their Pottstown Vaccine Clinic at Bethel Community Church of Pottstown at 575 North Kime Street. You do need to register through the county website. So don't go to Bethel Community Church's website to register. You need to go to the montgopa.org/COVID vaccine page, register there, and then you can get your date and time for your vaccination. Plenty of vaccines available, folks.
I'm going to give you a little tip. All you got to do is go to the county website. Right in front of
It's
your
enormous.
face
Yes.
is a huge icon that says COVID-19 vaccine.
Right.
Click
You
on
can't miss it. Can't
You
miss
cannot miss it. Just go to Montgomery County homepage. If you Google Montgomery County homepage, Guess where it's going to take
To
you?
the Montgomery County homepage?
Yeah.
Oh, you got to put Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, because there's also Montgomery County,
There is.
Maryland.
There is. There's several
All
other
right, and then you
Montgomerys.
sent me something this afternoon, Matt.
Yeah.
Pottstown Community Resource Fair, Montgomery County. Oops, hold on, folks. Okay.
It's the Office of the Public Defender.
The Public Defender's Office. Expedited pardon process for marijuana convictions. So for those that have had convictions for like a little bit of weed, and then it's on their record, they might have trouble getting a job, et cetera, et cetera. So this is Saturday, May 8th from 1 to 4 at Smith Family Plaza and Montgomery County Public Defender's Office. So there you go.
Do it.
Yeah.
It'll
Clear
keep
your-
you from getting a nursing job. There's other jobs that'll keep you getting for it. And let's be honest, marijuana is legal in Pennsylvania. So
Well,
there's-
medical is legal.
Well, it's still legal
And
weed.
it's decriminalized in Philadelphia, I think, right?
Yeah, they're
Decriminalized
probably-
a certain amount.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the point of what I'm saying
Yeah.
is don't let that hold you back now that we're being progressive and moving forward
Right.
with these marijuana
Right.
laws.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
don't let it
think
hold you back from reaching your dreams, folks.
Contact them May
Yep.
8th, Smith Family Plaza.
1 to
yeah.
4. Yep.
You can also find more information about that if you go to the Montgomery County homepage.
You should just
Office of the
bookmark that.
Public Defender. Just bookmark it.
Right.
Here's another thing, too. Mike Murphy, who was on
Mm-hmm.
the show last week, wanted us to know that this weekend, May 1st, in addition to the Mayfair,
Right.
there's the powwow.
Yep.
And then there's also the car show.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Powwow starts at 10.
Yep.
Mayfair starts at 11.
Mm-hmm.
Car show starts at 5. That's a whole day of activity right here in Pottstown.
And if you do all of those things and take a picture of yourself at each of those events and send it to Matt and I, we'll give you a T-shirt.
We'll give you something.
We'll give you something for doing
If
all
I
that.
run out of T-shirts, I got something else for you.
You got a hat.
Something.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is part of the car show, and Mike Murphy wanted us to know that there's a gentleman by the name of Rob Ida. He's a custom car designer.
Cool.
So he designs these custom hot rods, award-winning vehicles. Rob Ida is going to be at the car show.
Oh, right. He mentioned that when we talked to him last week.
He's
Cool.
going to bring 5 of the cars that he's designed.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be meeting and greeting, signing autographs, etc., etc.
Right.
That name means nothing to me.
But in that world, it probably does.
It must
right?
be a big name.
Yeah, and if you're like a car person, or maybe your kids, you got your kids into Hot Wheels and loves hot rods and stuff, bring them down to the car show. It's free. It's outside. It's safe.
And he also says that hometown veterans Jeff Gerber and Mike Murphy II will be at the Red Horse Motoring Club tent, along with Eastwood and
Okay.
Rob Ida.
Mm-hmm.
So in addition to meeting Rob Ida, getting the scoop on what's going on over at Eastwood, based in Pottstown, you can meet these veterans that they're honoring specifically for that day.
Right.
You can learn more about the Veterans Island Project.
Yep.
All of this is going on in May 1st.
Yes.
If somebody
It's a big
complains that they're bored this Saturday, I might smack them.
I was gonna weed my yard. I still need to pull out my onion grass, but maybe I'll just blow off the weeding and I'll just do all that other fun
Do
stuff.
all that other stuff.
Right?
All right, folks.
All right.
We're at the end of the show. We've had a lot of fun. It's been serious. We've had some laughs, though, which is one of the recommendations for board members. A little bit of humor can carry you a long way.
Exactly.
I want to thank Lou Beccaria and Connie Carter for coming in to talk about their
Thank
book.
you.
Right here.
The book is Nonprofit Excellence Strategies for a Challenging World, a handbook for grant making and nonprofit leadership skills. After the show, I'm going to do a post that'll be pinned to the top of Matt Green at Glocker Real Estate, and you will be able to find out how you can order your books. Thanks for coming in, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, been
Thank
very
you, Amy.
educational. Yeah.
I am Matt
Lots to think about.
Green. I am your local real estate expert. Please call me when you need help selling or buying residential and commercial real estate. Amy Wolf is the lady boss over at Wolf Baldwin and Associates. She's also the host of Porchcast Pottstown. Wolf Baldwin and Associates, bringing you fine legal service in the borough of Pottstown since 1973.
Yes. Thank you.
We are Porchcast. Let's